Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic:
adults, especially those over 30, how young does 18 seem to you? It's weird. I can have an adult, intellectual conversation with someone that young, that suddenly shifts into a different conversation in which I'm concerned about the basic well-being and feel the need to give them food. I'm a college professor and this is exactly how I feel about my students. We'll have a great nuanced discussion about course content. Then I overhear them trying to figure out how to iron a shirt, or they tell me their parents call them to wake them up every morning, and I can't believe they're the same people. Yeah, I work with a lot of students too. I love talking with you about Kierkegaard. Did you set your alarm to wake up on time tomorrow? Quote. 18 years 1 minute, yup, and then we demoed the whole bathroom right down to the plumbing and electrical. It's gonna be awesome. 18 years the next minute, what if my mom finds out I drank the entire bottle of Stoli in the media room? Quote. Man, I'm 19, I feel called out. 38 here. When I was 18 I thought I was an adult. But now I know I really wasn't. I was absolutely still a kid, just one who could buy cigarettes and vote. Couldn't have worded it more precisely. Also 38. I'm 40. Get off my lawn, kid. 35, almost 36 here. If your age ends in teen, I class you as a kid. Yup, coming up on 36 in a couple weeks myself, and I agree. 18 shouldn't be considered a legal adult, haha. 36 already, and LMAO, yeah. Looking back I realize I was mentally and functionally no different between 18 and 21. Grew up way more between 25 and 35 than I did between 16 and 26, although I realize that isn't the case for everyone. At 18 I was offended when older people called me kid. I'm 32 and anything under or around 20 gets the kid label. Funny how age warps perception. Someone who is 18 is just an elder child who has yet to experience 99.9% of what being an adult is actually about. I'm 28 and 18 feels like decades ago. Every year from 18 to 25 feels like 5 years in terms of growth and experience. An 18-year-old and I probably have about as much in common as an 18-year-old and an 8-year-old. It's the reason normal people find adults who date 18-year-olds fucking creepy to the extreme. Fucking gross. 40, and work with the US Army. It made me realize we really do send children to war. Some of these kids look like they've barely started shaving. I might get shit for this, but I think sending them off to colleges right after high school is crazy to me. For those who do go, you're still kinda sheltered up until at least 24. They're babies being thrown into their final stages, asked to hurry up and choose what you want to be for the rest of your life. There should be a pre-K, but for colleges, haha. I see these kids struggle and then choose something easy that'll get the out there the fastest, but screws them over in the long run. 'Cause it turns out they can't use that degree for anything good. I'm not saying I disagree, but I just don't think they should be sent off to war. At 18, you can't even buy a beer. You haven't had time to have any really deep relationships, you know basically nothing. Maybe not the Air Force, Coast Guard, and Navy, but the Army and Marines should have an enlistment requirement of 25 years old. Not saying the other services aren't important, but they are support forces for the infantry services. Like an actual child. Absolutely no life experience yet, but just old enough to tell you how the world should work, lol. All the conviction, none of the experience. Even when they're right they don't know now why. Not that that's exclusive or guaranteed to, at that age, but it's definitely very common. I read something that basically said, knowledge is recognizing a tomato is a fruit while wisdom is not putting the tomato in a fruit salad, basically the same thing you're saying. Knowing shit, but not understanding it. 32F, 18 is tiny baby. To clarify, I mean this in the kindest, gentlest way possible. Exclamation mark. Tiny baby must be protected, so, I know they are autonomous adults. But, still so small, must be protected. As someone who watches porn, the older I get, 32 now, the more and more repulsive I find the idea of 18 being the legal age for porn. Like, on one hand I get that there are other people who are 18 and want to see people around their own age, and I was that way, too, at 18, but on the other hand I now feel like they're too young to be putting themselves out there in such a way, especially when thinking about how the 18-19-year-old category is one of, if not actually, the biggest category across viewers of all ages. Fetuses. They're children. I'm a gay guy in my 40s and regularly get hit up by guys that age on Grindr. Gives me the creeps every time as I essentially view them as children. I love that you recognize the importance of respecting age differences, because I think in our community, I too am gay, that line can too easily be muddled. I used to have the same reaction when I was on gay dating apps. I'm a gay guy in his 40s too, hell, I think of anyone under 25 as a child. 26 to 30 is young adult. You might have some things figured out. 26 to 30. Might. I had a young kid hit on me, and was complimenting my leather jacket. As I was walking up to the coffee stand where he worked, I heard him and a fellow employee discussing their ages, and got to let him know that the jacket he was complimenting was older than he was. I also let him know that that was the reason I wasn't going to meet him for drinks. Haha, my Grindr bio used to say, "No teenagers please, I've got t-shirts older than you." They still message me though. 18. Feels like yesterday I was that age. Time flies, man. Cherish your youth. Can't always cherish it unfortunately. Doesn't feel like yesterday to me. Feels almost like a different lifetime. Then again, I'm 33, so your mileage may vary depending on your age. I'm always surprised by people who says they'd go back in time. Or think it's a better time in life. IDK to me that chapter is closed. And feels exactly the amount of time ago it was. 35 here, 18-year-olds have this kind of fresh glow to their skin, like a baby still. Didn't ever really see it until more recently. Mentally they vary a lot. Some act like they're 13, some act more like late 20s. Skin like a freshly molted lizard. Yeah, I think once they're adults, their maturity starts to look like a probability distribution. You'll have 25-year-olds still with their parents at home with no jobs acting like how you'd think a 16-year-old act, and then you'll have 18-year-olds who moved out 800 kilometers away, have a job, take care of their home, goes out places, invest in their retirement savings, etc., gathering more experience in a year than that 25-year-old gathered in 7. There's no difference between 15 and 18 for me, 35. There's only babies, toddlers, 1 to 6, small children, 6 to 12, big children, 13 to 18, and young adults, 19 to 24, in my limited worldview. Putting 13 and 18 together is kinda crazy. I teach 13-year-olds and their level of maturity is crazy low. I'd split that up into 13 to 15 and 16 to 18. I agree, driving and the independence that comes with it is a really big milestone. I changed aggressively in between 15 to 18. Let's just say the first ever time I drove a car by myself was to my Wednesday Bible study group I went to every week. Less than a year later I was using that same car to do beer runs and take myself to therapy for, among other things, religion-based trauma and OCD. My big children box is more like 11 to 22, people who I can have an interesting conversation with but sometimes need a bit more context that they haven't experienced yet, but otherwise, yeah. Grouping 11-year-olds and 22-year-olds together is brutal lol. I'm 49, and run a weekly D&D game. I have a couple of kids that are 18 and 21 that play with their mom in the game. They are kids. Period. Even the somewhat older kids that play in the game, in their mid-20s, are still kids to me. I have fun running games for them, but view them nothing more than kids, because they are actually younger than my oldest kid. That's where I'm at. I'm 46, and my oldest is 21. Anyone younger than my oldest child is absolutely still a child. I'm sure that'll change at some point, but that's the current line for me. Thought I was so mature going off to college at 18. By God, I was an insecure idiot rolling on the floor laughing now. If I happen to drive near a college campus, I am shocked at how young they all look, children. I work at a military base. Try coming onto a military base every morning and seeing 18-year-olds holding assault rifles. I really wish we could normalize not going to college right after high school. I had zero fucking clue what I was doing or wanted to do. So I toiled away and was miserable, depressed, and anxiety-riddled for 5 years. I double majored, and haven't done a thing with it. I feel like such a loser and like I wasted everyone's money and time since I didn't pursue a career in either field of study and am now working in a small boutique, which I absolutely love. So people see me as someone that went to university and now works retail, quotes around that because people seem to look down on that, and I'm trying to convey that people are dicks that like to judge. Kids don't need to go to college as soon as they graduate. Let them mature and maybe find a passion they want to turn into a career. Old enough that you're legal to have sex with. Young enough that I don't want to. One of those. Just because it's legal doesn't mean you should. The age of consent is like the minimum wage. Sure, it's legal, but we all know you'd go lower if you could get away with it. I'm 30 and wouldn't be interested in sex with anyone younger than 27. IDC if it's legal. Guys my age who are into 18-year-olds tend to radiate really creepy vibes, and it seems like a lot of them would go younger if they could. I get not being into 18, but 27 seems like too hard of a cutoff. I'm about your age, think my cutoff would be in the 21 to 23 range. Extremely young. I'm 47. 18 is like the toddler stage of adulthood. 18 is like, I'm pregnant, what do we name this thing, stage of adult. I think it's too vague and inaccurate when people just say, they're children. They're not. They're in a middle place between childhood and adulthood. That said, at 37, the older I get the younger they seem, obviously. Well said. We need to stop with the whole, but they're just children thing, because they're not. They are adults, regardless of how we see them through the lens of age. We need to guide them, not belittle them. Perspective difference. I don't think classifying someone as a child is belittlement. If anything, it activates my drive to guide them more strongly. It also depends heavily on their life experiences to date. Some people have dealt with more shit by 18 than some folks have by 40. And given the number of adults that still behave like children, I think the gap is gravely exaggerated in many cases.